When you ask, how do I help my child stop hitting, in many places, one of the first comments you'll get back is tell your child that it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hit. And for many parents, they will say that I'm doing that and it's not making a difference. And I want to talk today about why that phrase, even though it's really well-meaning and quite accurate, it doesn't actually help kids to stop hitting in the majority of cases. So my name's Jodie Thornton, and today we're really going to focus on why that phrase doesn't land for our kids, but then what we need to do instead to help our children learn not to hit. So if we break down the phrase into the components, the very first thing we say is it's okay to be angry. Now, the reason we want to say it's okay to be angry is that we all know what it's like to have been told that your feelings are not valid. So in the process of being told that your behavior is not okay, either directly or indirectly, we've picked up the message that that means that my feelings are not okay. And we're trying to avoid that, right? In the current generation of parenting, we're trying to avoid invalidating our children's feelings. So we say things like it's okay to be angry. But the thing is, unless your child actually thinks it's not okay to be angry, it's not useful. Like if you see a child that you can feel is like pushing down their anger, then it can be helpful to say, sweetie, it is okay to be angry. Like you're allowed to be angry about this. That's useful and helpful. But for a child who is lashing out because they're angry, like they're not thinking it's not okay to be angry. And so saying to them it's okay to be angry, they're like irrelevant to how, like what's going on for me right now. It's just not helpful. And so it doesn't actually do anything to validate the feelings, and it doesn't actually address what's going on for them in that moment. So it's not really that helpful. Now, the second nuance on this is that you can see how if you're in a really excruciating pain and a child is starting to hit because they're angry, that means that the emotional pain has reached a level of intensity that does not feel good. If someone says to you, it's okay for you to be angry in that moment, it kind of sounds like you being in emotional pain is kind of just, that's just okay. Like, you know, you should just be able to cope with that, or that's not a problem that needs to be dealt with. Like there's all these kind of like implied messages that our child can pick up where it's like, it's actually not okay for me to be angry. And that's okay. That's true not just for children, but for adults as well. If you're feeling angry, that means something needs to be done. Like we're not just meant to just feel anger. And this is something that I want to talk about all the time. The way people talk about feelings as though they're the weather. If you just wait a while, the feeling will pass. And that, like, is so not the way feelings work. Like, yes, you can wait a while and the feeling will pass, but most of the time that's either repression or it's denying the feeling. It's like, it's not what's happening. Now, what we want to do instead is help our child to understand the feeling and do something about it. So when we say it's okay for you to be angry, in some cases, like it kind of can feel like invalidating. We're not invalidating the anger feeling, but we're invalidating the idea that our child requires and is allowed to have emotional peace and calm. So then we go to the second part, it's not okay to hit. So when our child, all behavior, absolutely all behavior, is our child saying, this is the best way I can think of that will get my needs met. And sometimes it is like a logical, rational, this is the best way I can think of. And other times it's like an emotional response, a reaction rather than something that's thought through. But in either case, what they're doing is the best way they can think of to get what they need. And if you tell somebody the best way you can think of to get what you need is not allowed, what that can feel like is that I am not allowed to have what I need, or you don't care if I get what I need or not. All you care about is how it impacts other people. You're not caring about what's going on for me. How do I get what I need? And so that it's not okay to hit, it's like this, it's a huge affront for a child. It's like, but like, what am I going to do, right? It's okay for you, you'll be fine if I don't hit, but how am I going to get my needs met? And so what we want to do then is actually look instead as how we help our child to recognize what the need is. So that's our first job, is we look at what are the situations where your child is typically hitting. We want to look for what is the underlying need. And you know you've gotten to the underlying need if it does two things. One, you can validate it. And so if you think of you just want things to be your way, I can't really validate. I mean, like, is that really a valid thing? Like, to always get something your way? Like, it's not really something to validate. But you want to have autonomy. You want to have a sense of being able to make your own decisions. I can totally validate that, right? So that's our one thing, is can you validate it? If you can't validate it, you need to go deeper. What would be underneath that desire of theirs? That's how we know we've got to a need. And our second checkpoint to make sure we've gotten to the need is that you can get that need met in a million different ways. So if we think about you need to make your own decisions, so therefore you want to choose what color cup you're going to have, well, the only way you can get that done is if you get the right color cup, right? That's not a need. Whereas you want to have a sense of control, therefore you want to be able to make a choice. We can do that in a million different ways. You do not need to have the cup that is presently halfway through the dishwashing cycle, right? We can get it, the same need, met in a different way. So that's how we tell we've gotten to the need. And the second thing we want to do is help our child understand what are the words they can use to express that need. So if we think about, a great one is like, I want connection. So, let's go all the steps through, right? A lot of people will say attention seeking is actually connection seeking. And sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. Attention seeking can actually be just, I have a need and I'm looking for a way to get that need met. Sometimes the need is connection, but sometimes the need is fun. Sometimes the need is comfort. Sometimes the need is, I'm bored, and I know that you, as my parent, are very skilled at making me not bored, so I'm looking to you to make me not bored. That's not the same as needing connection. It's a different thing, right? So if we're breaking down what it is to the actual need, then we look for the words they can use to express it. It's like, I want to have fun, right? Or I would like you to play, I'd like you to play where I get to the way I am choosing, right? We're looking for those words to express what is the need. The more we help our child get the express the need, first of all, it helps them to calm down a little bit, because being connected to the need helps them to see that it's not a crisis, that it's just a need that we need to find a way to figure it out. And the second thing that expressing it does is it makes it more likely that they will get the need met. The more they can talk it through with you or a sibling or a friend, the more they can talk about what's going on for them, the less likely it is that it'll escalate, and the more likely it is that they'll be able to find a solution. That gives you more time. You know how that hitting thing, for some kids it takes a long time to build up. For other kids it goes from 0 to 5,000 really, really quickly. That being able to express the need verbally can really help slow down the process of escalation. It gives you more time to solve the problem before the hitting comes out. And then the third thing I would add is that in your day-to-day life with your child, start looking for the times when they can't get what they need, validating that the need is still valid and you would do it if you could. So if you look through your day-to-day life with your child, it is often the case that we are telling our children routinely that they can't have what they need. When we think through what's really going on, what we're saying is that how you want to get that need met is not practical right now for whatever reason, but instead what we're trying to say is that actually your need is valid. And hey, why don't we look for a different way to get that need met? So let's say you're trying to do the dishes and they want to play with you. If you can validate that the need is to have fun, it's not actually connection they're looking for at that moment, then you can say, sweetie, I really need to get the dishes done right now, but I'm sure there's a way for you to find, I'm sure that you can find a way to have fun without me. If you can't, I'll be ready when I'm finished the dishes. And you can see how that's very different to I am unavailable because, I have the dishes to do, or I've just played with you for 3 hours, that's enough now, right? It's all a lot of the typical ways we do things, whether we're short and sharp because we don't have much left in the tank. Even when we're trying to be loving and validating, so often the message is you should be okay with not getting your needs met, when actually the message we want to give to our children is that right now this way to get your needs met is not practical. There will be other ways, and I trust that you could find it, or we can find it together. We want to just shift the way we talk about those needs. And then that also means that your child is focusing, when the need comes up, they're focusing on how do we get to the bottom of that and how do we solve the problem. And secondly, the intensity and like the pace at which the escalation happens slows down. That then means that they're more likely to be able to give a little bit more time to the problem solving, so they don't go straight to the hitting. So hopefully this has been really helpful. And if you'd like to get into the detail around how do we get our children to recognize those needs, how do we validate them, what do we do in the moment when the child is hitting and we need to keep our cool and be able to handle it, I have a webinar that you can grab the recording on at jodithornton.com/hitting. And in that webinar, I take you through the steps of what we can do in that moment and how do we get our child to focus on finding the need and resolving the need rather than going through the escalation and the hitting. So if you have any questions at all, pop them in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.